Hi, I wanted to give you some helpful hints on how to read this first reading and prepare to make your video and submit it. I don't know if you've ever read a chapter in a textbook before and at the end of it just felt like information overload had occurred, that you couldn't actually remember anything because you'd read too many facts. This first reading is from a textbook published in 1989. It's a little bit dated, but it's by Herbert Gutman, who is one of the great historians of United States history. And I kind of wanted you to have the opportunity to read some work of this great historian. And it's kind of a longish chapter, but it's quite good. And but it's full of facts and full of information. So don't try and remember all the facts. You're not going to be tested true and false on what happened. Instead, what you're going to look for are themes for the chapter. What themes, first of all, you're going to look for what themes the author wants you to understand. And second of all, you're going to ask how those themes fit in with the themes that we're studying in our class. So let's do a comparison. Let's say, let's compare reading this text to getting directions. And let's say you were going to do some volunteer work at the elementary school and you had just arrived here and you didn't know where it was. And so let's say you were living in the dorms and you stepped out and you asked somebody, how do I get to the elementary school? And they say, okay, what you're going to do is from here you're going to go halfway around the big circle and you'll come to the street that takes you out to Latye Village. Go down that street to the four-way stop. You'll keep going straight, you'll cross the street, and you'll pass a cream-colored house. Then you'll pass a cream-colored duplex. Then you'll cross the street, and there will be a gold-colored house. Then you'll pass a grayish duplex. You'll cross this. Oh, and then there's a salmon-colored house. You'll cross the street, and then there's a yellow and blue house. Then you'll cross a street that has the whole front yards in concrete. Then you'll come to another house that has a big breadfruit tree. Then you'll cross the next house, which is blue and white. Across the street, there's a greenhouse with a chain link fence and these little tiny yappy dogs. Then you'll get to the next house, and it's a kind of creamish colored house. Another house that's cream colored with a rust colored trim. Then you'll cross the street, and there's a kind of goldish cream colored house. You'll be at the roundabout. As you go around that roundabout, there is the elementary school. Now, if they were to check with you and say, okay, give me the directions back, you might say, well, I get to the four-way stop, I go straight, and there's a house, and just your brain isn't wired to remember. Most of us, our brains aren't wired to remember everything. Reading a book straight through and expecting to remember all the facts is very similar to that. You get to the end and you're lost. A better way to read is to look for landmarks. So if you were to stop me outside the dorms and say, how do I get to the elementary school? I would say, go halfway around the big circle. And as you get to the little circle, there's a main avenue that will take you into Latye Village. You walk down that street till you get to the four-way stop. Then turn left, and you should see in the distance the temple. And you're going to walk to the temple. When you get to the temple, turn your back to the temple, face towards the ocean, walk straight to the ocean, and right before you get to the highway that's in front of the ocean is a roundabout. That roundabout is where Latye Elementary School is. So what I've done in this is I've given you several landmarks. The big circle, the four-way stop, the temple, the turnabout, and then you're at the elementary school. You can look for those main characteristics, those main landmarks. Now in the reading, Herbert Gutman has given you landmarks like this. He's given you titles. The title of the chapter is Europe Colonizes the Americas. Here he's giving you the main theme that he's going to be exploring in this chapter. Then he divides the chapters up, and he does it by giving you subtitles that give you, in a sense, kind of the main theme of those sections. For example, the first section is the peoples of the New World. The second section is crisis in Europe. Here he's giving you a hint even of what the main idea is going to be. These are the landmarks. Here's a landmark, I'm going to change direction, I'm going left. Here's a landmark, go straight ahead. He shifts directions, and when he does that, he tells you what the landmark is by giving you a title. Now, just like when you walk between the four-way stop in La Haye to the temple, there's certain characteristics of the landscape. There's a low brick wall, a low rock wall with a grassy field on one side of the street and houses on the other. You pass TVA where the married students live. You pass some condos where the faculty live, and there's another green field before you get to the temple. This is different than when you walk down the street to the elementary school between the temple and the ocean, because that street is lined by tall rock walls. A different landscape, a different characteristic. Well, the chapter is this way too. Each of these sections has a main idea that the author is trying to get across to the audience. So what you want to look for when you read is, what are the main landmarks? And within that section, what is the main idea that the author, in this case Herbert Gutman, is trying to get across? Now you want to be able to remember this. You would want to be able to remember this for the assignment at the end, the essay assignment at the end. You'll want to be able to remember this for your video that you're going to put on. And one of the ways to remember this is to look for stories that are told within each of these sections. These stories are often evidence that support the main idea of the different sections. And if you remember those stories and how the stories connect to the main idea and even how they connect to other parts of the landmark, if you remember that kind of lay of the land, you should be able to remember most of the chapter when you're finished. And I think what you'll be surprised is how many of the details you actually retain. Because what you've done, what studies find, is if you spend time organizing the information in your mind, you actually learn it better, and you don't have to memorize it because your brain just automatically helps you to remember it. Now, to help you organize this, I've attached a table to this assignment that you can fill in that will help you to keep track of what's going on in each of the different sections and when the landmarks change. You shouldn't read off this table to make your video assignment. Instead, it should be a prompt that helps you to remember what is important and what you want to communicate. And in the video, what I'll be looking for is coverage. Do you cover the whole chapter? And secondly, were you able to see the structure, how the different pieces fit into a whole, and are you able to give, you should give specific evidence, maybe just one example to support what the main idea of each section is. You want to tell me what the main idea is and a little bit of evidence. And you're going to have to be careful and choose carefully because you only have 1 to 3 minutes for your video. I think you'll find that this table or template will help you to succeed in this task.